Don't worry, we're here to get you ready for your day.
That's right. The Weather Channel has you covered from coast to coast as we kick off the unofficial end of summer. Labor Day weekend is upon us with Labor Day coming up on Monday.
Yeah, but some of the skies behind us, they look like spring.
Yeah.
Right, more like Memorial Day than Labor Day. This is some bad thunderstorm action.
Yeah.
I believe this is in Gaylord, Michigan. Yesterday, we saw some big storms. How about that?
The mothership has landed. Look at that shelf cloud. They're quite impressive, but we could see a repeat to this later on today.
That's right. Gaylord has been the site for certainly other phenomena, not necessarily meteorological. We saw a bear. Look, look.
That is not what I was expecting. Okay.
Now, some of us thought that that might have been Reynolds Wolf dressed up in a costume.
Oh no, he's taking the.
Yeah. Look at this.
He is taking the bird nest.
They took
Bird
it.
feeder.
He ran like he stole something.
Looking for his 15 minutes of fame. He's got it on the internet and beyond. But if a bear eats in the woods and no one sees it,
we saw it. It
we
did.
did see it.
Well, guess what? Wet weather, unfortunately, could be maybe.
Cutting it out. If the next couple days is a little too hot for you, don't worry because we've got a nice cool down coming. So take a look at the forecast for Detroit today. We're in the upper 80s. We've got afternoon storms, some of which could get a little bit on the feisty side. Now, we should be in the upper 70s. So this is about 10 degrees above average for where we should be for Detroit. You can see you are right in the area of that possibility for strong storms, gusty winds. You're included in that, but really anywhere in this shaded area, you could see some of those storms get a little bit on the feistier side. So here's what's going on. We've got this warm front that's going to be lifting north. It is bringing the warmth, the heat, the humidity, all of that with it. And then we are going to get this cold front to sweep through and bring some cooler air behind it. But you know what happens when you have those two things? They clash and you get the storms in the warm sector. And that's exactly what we're going to see. Nice start to your morning in Indianapolis. We've got some rain moving into Chicago. And we are going to continue to see this energy building, which means that is going to help fuel those storms, especially as that front slowly starts to make its way eastward. So here's what's going on. We've got some winds. We've got some pretty robust winds at about 5,000 feet above the ground over the past 3 hours. So that is going to help to get those storms going as well. You can see a little bit of rain starting off your morning, but with that daytime heating, that's going to make all the difference. And you're going to have those storms becoming certainly maybe severe for some of us, but at the least, you're going to have those type of storms that are impacting your day with the heavy rain, with lots of lightning. That cold front, as it moves south and east across Lake Michigan this evening, you've got a couple different ingredients coming together that bring us that risk for severe storms, for heavy rainmakers as well. And the ground for some of us here is pretty saturated, so you could get some flash flooding issues as well. So we've got strong winds aloft. All of that comes together to keep those storms going and to enhance that damaging wind risk as well. So that 5 times fast. Damaging wind risk. As mentioned, we've got the flash flooding possibility. We're stretching that from Oklahoma up through St. Louis, Indianapolis, Detroit, Pittsburgh, all included in that. As that front, it's not a crazy fast moving front. I mean, it is sweeping through, but it's not like one of those ones that's going to sweep through and bring you a drop in temperatures in like an hour. So when you have that chance for the storms to kind of fall over the same places for multiple rounds, along with all the moisture that we have, it does bring you that flash flooding chance. You can see Detroit, these are moving in for your Friday evening. Fort Wayne, same thing for you. Springfield, Illinois, we've got that possibility for those evening storms. So you're going to have to keep an eye on that. They could be impacting your Friday evening, Paul. And then, of course, we're going to watch all of this fill in across the south as well. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, enjoying my long weekend. It's the people that are going to be stuck with rounds and rounds and rounds of rain, as Paul is just showing you, that are kind of not getting the greatest deal out of this. So let's talk about the past 24 hours. We've had some hail reports, some wind damage reports as well. It's just been a very active time across the Tennessee Valley, up into the mid-Atlantic, northeast as well. Not to mention not only the wind reports, the hail reports, but also the rain that we've gotten. Now, I will say some of this area does need that rain where we're seeing some drought conditions, but what you don't want is getting up to 5 to 8 inches of rain, getting some flooding reports. Look at all that heavy rain as you look there for portions of the Delmarva as well. So that cold front is going to continue moving south and east. That's bringing us the storms for places like Detroit later on today. It is going to move south and east, and it is going to bring us the chance for storms for places like Roanoke, Raleigh, Charlotte of the day. The main risks with any of these storms that are getting to a severe limit, that's going to be wind for this region. So we're starting out fairly quiet. You've got sun in Virginia Beach, sunny and 78 in Charlotte, a little bit of fog in Columbia. What is going to happen, though, is that front moves through and interacts with our daytime heating, interacts with our moisture. It's going to pop those storms up. It's like we flip the little light switch. You start to see the storms bubbling up across western Tennessee, and then we'll continue to see this filling in, Paul, as we head into the nighttime hours. So it's really going to be a Friday night type of activity for us here, but we're also watching what it's going to do for the Northeast.
Yes, in fact, AAA, light at the end of the tunnel, and it's a cooler light, but it's a lot of bright sauna light that we have to get through to get there.
So the 90 this afternoon in Pittsburgh, perfectly fine with me. The 51 is not, I'm not okay with that just yet.
But she doesn't live in Pittsburgh. You living in Pittsburgh.
That's right. You're ready
looking
for
forward
it.
to that. Here comes the front coming into the heat that's building here across the Great Lakes and Northeast. And it's before it gets out there, it's not leaving quietly. We're threatening potential records.
Yeah, that's right. You can see Louisville, you can see a record of 99 from 1953, Lexington 1953 as well. So we could see some really old records falling there. Today, the heat index, that's going to be in play for you. Once again, Cincinnati, you guys are feeling like you're well into the triple digits. Nashville, you guys are getting into that as well. And we know that's sometimes what makes all the difference.
Yeah, but I tell you what, unofficial end of summer this weekend, we could be finally saying goodbye to widespread heat indices like this as we head into next week. Here comes the cold front. And yes, more showers and thunderstorms, but also much drier air across the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, and also pushing into the Northeast.
Yeah, sometimes it's not always about the temperatures that makes the big difference, even though the temperatures are going to be dropping as well. It is the drier air that makes all the difference, especially when you get that temperature to drop and that dew point to drop.
Yeah, so we've been talking all summer long about above average. What about below average? Look what happens as we head on through the three-day weekend. By Labor Day, we're talking almost a third of the population here in lower 48. Temperatures not at average, but below average.
I'm so happy for Texas. They deserve it. Finally. Let's talk about your temperatures here. Much more comfortable looking, right? 75 in Chicago. Just a fantastic day there. Still, though, a little hot as you look a little bit farther south. Nashville, Little Rock, but not as hot as it has been.
But even Atlanta, 91. That could be the last 90 you might see in a while. We could have like a little wedge, which might keep you cool for that first full week of September.
I'm not ready. Well, track the temps with the TW. The heavy rain, some flash flooding, some severe storms, all of that could be impacting your travel. So we're going to have these storms moving through. It's really going to be after sunset for places like Detroit, but you could have some damaging winds, maybe some hail. And I will tell you, an isolated tornado risk can't completely be ruled out here. But the storms along the front, Indianapolis, Fort Wayne, really we're looking at that heavy rain. We're looking at maybe some stronger winds as well. Here's what's happening. The warm front's going to lift north. It's going to bring us a balmy day to Detroit, to Columbus as well. In that warm sector, you're going to feel that humidity, and then that cold front is going to start to interact with all of that heat and humidity and destabilization in the warm sector of our frontal boundary, and then that cold front starts to move through and pop up those storms. So the daytime heating helps to build the energy, and then that is how we get some of those more robust storms as this front slides south and east and helps with that storm development. Plenty of moisture as well, as we're getting some of that low-level moisture transport. Timing this out for you here, Chicago, you'll have some rain showers moving through. Fort Wayne, you can see this is still well west of you by 6 p.m. when you're getting off of work, but you'll need to watch for your Friday night. Flint moving through right as we're trying to kick off our Labor Day weekend. Detroit, it's going to be closer to sunset for you. Springfield, Illinois, down through St. Louis, you've got those storms for the evening as well. And then we continue to watch that cluster of storms kind of move through Fort Wayne, Cleveland into the overnight and early Saturday. We still have some storms dotting the map for the beginning of our Saturday. For today, we've got some rain around across the Northeast as well. Boston, you should have a pretty nice day, but we'll watch that chance for some showers for the coast, back up into upstate New York as well. And then tomorrow, as that front starts to impact some of these areas, we have that possibility for some stronger thunderstorms. Binghamton down through Philly, Washington, D.C., you're all included in that. And then a wide chunk of real estate with that risk for some flash flooding, especially with the rain that we just saw in the last 24 hours or so. We're going to add even more onto that. Quick look at the future radar on here. You can see that moving through your Saturday, becoming more widespread for your Saturday evening, your Saturday afternoon, and then into the nighttime hours as well. Paul, was that 1930?
And also Sequoia National Park. For all things Sierra Nevada, our friend of the show,
like old dating game thing.
Well, thanks for joining us. Now, We know if there's anyone to talk to about this, it's you. So you have to tell us about summer in the Sierra and what it has to offer visitors.
I'll tell you, the Sierra Nevada,
Also, California home to a lot of notable national parks and forests, well, the state parks and forests as well. Tell us about some of the parks that call the Sierras home.
well, just right down the road from us is Yosemite.
We would be remiss if we didn't talk about the upcoming ski season. We need to know what you know so we can share it.
I've been watching you guys, and it looks really positive for a La Nina this year. And then we've been going back and
Isn't he excited at all, does he?
No, not at all. He's so low key. Thank you so much. This is Kevin Cooper with Cooper Marketing joining us live from luxurious Lake Tahoe. Thanks so much for joining us. And the good thing about those ski resorts, yes, we're ramping up for winter. They're open during the summer. If you don't want to ride up a mountain, take a chairlift up and then bike down.
See the beautiful scenery.
Yeah.
Well, America's Morning headquarters is hitting the road to find what's best in your...
This weekend, a lot of football games. Today, by the way, is National Wear Your Colors Day. I got my burnt orange on from my Longhorns, and your...
I was wondering what was going on with that.
A lot of Longhorn pride here.
That's a lot of pattern going on.
What about your Knights?
I'm as close as I could get to black and gold for the UCF Knights.
They
Go
won
Knights.
last night.
Did they?
They did.
Good job, guys. You didn't do that when I was there.
#1 fan.
#1 fan.
But hey, another big matchup going on. Wow.
Oh no, that was so unintentional, and I'm so sorry.
That's her no-look pass in terms of I'm not looking, and
I
she'll
am
pass
not
it to me.
Patrick Mahomes.
Anyway, this is a
Sorry,
big matchup
Paul.
going on in the Benz Stadium tomorrow in Atlanta.
All right, let's take a look at in Morgantown, West Virginia. It is going to be a hot one. You're going to have some storms bubbling up. We've got the Nittany Lions taking on the Mountaineers. That is tomorrow at noon, so I'm sure a lot of people will be gearing up for that.
Keep an eye on those storms. Meanwhile, in the swamp, it is swampy as the Hurricanes of Miami start moving up towards Gainesville here, and temperatures in the low 90s. But both cities, both schools are in pretty humid cities, so no real advantage there.
Yeah, I think they'll be fine. Now I'm paranoid. I'm just waiting for you to throw that ball back at me.
I'm not going to do that. Let's talk about my Longhorns.
Let's talk about your Longhorns, Paul. I'll let you talk about them.
Well, I think the advantage is definitely here, a better team, but also it says temperatures around 90, but here's the thing, the humidity would make it feel like 100. Humidity is something Colorado State there in Fort Collins only sees on TV.
Yeah, they don't see a lot of humidity there.
No. Okay, I'm going to throw the ball.
I feel like I should have ducked my face into it to make you feel bad. Ouch right now. No,
We're in a train wreck.
we're here to get you ready for your day. Don't you worry, we're all coming along with you.
Buckle up, Buttercup.
Yeah.
Here we go. The Weather Channel has you covered wherever you're headed this Labor Day weekend. We hope you start right here with us on AMHQ.
Yeah.
How about some of these clouds behind us? I mean, so this is in Michigan. We think was yesterday. But look, this is actually not Gaylord, Michigan.
Minnesota.
It's southern
The other
Minnesota.
one. Yeah.
Well, you know what?
You
Minnesota.
were testing us.
I was.
We passed.
We did.
Minnesota.
MN.
Southern Minnesota, clearly. And we're seeing some pretty nasty storm clouds move on by. So, yeah, there you go.
But I
at
see your
that.
confusion because this is also the sister city of Gaylord, Michigan, which has also seen some issues this weekend.
Non-meteorological problems in Gaylord, Michigan.
Well, it is because it was a sunny day, which brings the bears out.
Oh, yeah. Look at this guy.
We have seen many different animals on this cam, and we've never caught
Is
a
that like the
bear.
whole bird feeder?
Yeah, he took it and ran.
Yeah.
Or she. I don't know. Either way.
They do kind of, well, yeah, it's a bear.
It's a bear.
They're hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Down in temperatures, a nice cool down in dew points as well. And then plus, we've already seen what some of the stronger storms can do in the past, 24 hours or so. So you don't want to be out in that anyways. Here's a recap where we've seen some wind reports, hail reports, and then you can see a large cluster of these across the Ohio Valley up through the mid-Atlantic into the Northeast as well, whether it's the hail report, the wind report, and then some flooding reports where we saw quite a bit of rain in a really short period of time, where you're seeing those yellows. That's 3 to 5 inches, 5 to 8 inches in the orange. So of course that adds up very quickly and can cause some flooding issues like we saw. So here's what's happening. We've got scattered storms, scattered showers out ahead of this frontal boundary. But eventually that front is going to move through. It's going to bring us some storminess, but then it also brings us some much nicer weather. So for today, isolated risk for a severe storm from portions of Boone all the way over through Raleigh, Fayetteville, down into the coast. So if you're at the coast this weekend or today trying to soak up that one last weekend of summer, you want to keep an eye on that. some of these winds could get a little gusty with these storms, which, as we've seen, can bring down trees. So pretty quiet starting off your morning this morning. Plenty of sunshine across this region. That is going to help us get those storms going a little bit later in the day. So we first start to see some of those storms bubbling up across western portions of North Carolina, across western portions of Virginia, and then watch how these storms fill in across the Carolinas, across portions of Virginia, and some of those, especially into the evening and then early overnight, could be a little bit on the feisty side. Paul, we've got storms in the forecast for Raleigh, kind of hit or miss today, tomorrow, and rain on Sunday. And then, of course, it's not just here, it's across the Northeast as well.
Yes, and I tell you what, if you're traveling, well, guess what?
Paul's going to keep watching for squirrels. I'll do the weather. If you're in Pittsburgh, you might be squirrel watching in the heat and then bundling up tomorrow morning. I don't know, do you bundle up in 51? I'd bundle up in 51.
You bundle up in like, 68.
67.
Ooh.
That's my cutoff.
Anyway, this is going to be a breath of fresh air. So finally, it's a little taste of fall, and we might finally start seeing our last 90s for millions of Americans as we head on through this unofficial end of summer.
In Pittsburgh, we should be in the lower 80s, so you guys probably are pretty tired of having those above average temperatures. Here's our cold front. It's going to sweep through and bring us some cooler air, but not before interacting with all that warmth and heat and bringing us some storms.
Yeah, nothing goes easy. It is coming through with a fight here, and it's going to be rough. We're talking severe weather as we head on towards today and tomorrow. But before it gets there, we could see more records tied or maybe even set from Kentucky through Ohio into Indy.
Yeah, this is heat. Breaking some old records back from 1953. Dayton, Louisville, Lexington, you guys in that Ohio Valley are going to be sweating it out, not just because the actual temperatures are hot, but because we've got some humidity as well.
Yeah, so once we break the back of the humidity, we're going to break the back of these triple-digit heat indices. I think it's probably going to be the last weekend of that across the northern tier states, the southeast. It's still the southeast. It's still August into September.
It's going to be sticking around for a little while. Of course, we'll watch those storms as that front. This is kind of a front that we're going to be talking about for a little while. It brings us the scattered storms heading into early next week as well, but behind it, so nice.
You will really notice the drier air in the morning because the air will never cool down below the dew point. Dew point's 60s and 70s, and I can get there.
Yeah.
When you drop in the 50s, you feel that in the morning. It's going to be a breath of fresh air, and while it heats up fast, it's still going to be cooler air, so say goodbye to the 90s.
A little closer to normal.
Well, stay on top.
You find yourself in the middle of it, and now you're stuck. Now someone has to come get you. And now a day that was just kind of like, not a great day is a terrible day. So let's try to avoid that for you. That risk for severe storms, especially here across portions of Michigan, Detroit, Flint, you're included in that. Damaging winds, some hail certainly possible as we're heading into the nighttime hours. What's happening is we've got a front sweeping through, and that is helping to bubble up some of those storms, but also squeeze that moisture out of the atmosphere, which could lead to some flash flooding. So here we are. Here's the depiction of it. Our warm front is going to lift north, so that means places like Detroit, Indianapolis, Louisville, you guys are right in that warm sector of this system, which means it's going to be hot and humid today. Out ahead of this frontal boundary moving through, as that cold front sweeps through, you know what happens? It helps to lift and get those storms going. So here's what we're looking at in Chicago. We've got some departure delays up around an hour. Got some rain moving through, some lower cloud ceilings as well. So we are seeing some of those delays bubble up at O'Hare. Of course, as we know, when you have a major hub like Chicago and you start to see delays, sometimes we see those delays dominoing around the country, especially when you're talking about a holiday weekend and lots of people flying. Speaking of a lot of something, we've got a lot of available energy here. Look at how that's been increasing across Illinois, Indiana, over into Cincinnati as well. This is going to destabilize the atmosphere and help to get some of those storms going. So here's our front. It's moving through this afternoon and bubbling up. That cold front is going to help us get the lift, and then a couple different other things coming together to bring us that risk for damaging winds, for flash flooding, for some hail as well. So here's 6 p.m. Flint. You're getting some of those storms. We've got those storms moving through St. Louis and Springfield, Illinois. Fort Wayne, you're still mostly quiet, though. It's as we head into the evening hours that we start to see a better line of storms developing from Fort Wayne down through St. Louis. Detroit, you have those storms moving through as well. Columbus, you'll notice you're quiet for most of the day. It's not until the overnight hours, early Saturday, that we start to see that possibility for showers and storms thunderstorms for you. And then for today, you can see we've got some sunshine in Boston, but that chance for a few showers across the Northeast as well. And Paul, this is a far-reaching front. We've got a lot of different mechanisms coming together, especially in the south, that could bring us some stormy weather.
Yeah, you are not wearing all black and gold.
You can't, you got to talk to our style people, because I don't think they would have liked me in gold.
Despite your lack of college colors, your UCF
Knights.
Golden Knights?
No, I think we got rid of Golden
Knights won last night.
Yeah.
Right. Number 1, Georgia Bulldogs. They are hosting the Clemson Tigers in Atlanta. So a neutral site. But outside, temperatures close to the 90s tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going to be a hot one. Let's see. The Nittany Lions taking on the West Virginia Mountaineers. You've got those temperatures into the mid-80s, but guys, we do have that chance for some storms, so you want to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, a lot of good games going on. A big battle in Florida here. You got your Gators hosting.
You ready this time?
I'm ready this time. I was watching, see? She had a no-look pass before where I wasn't looking, and she still passed to me. But the U.
Don't blame it on me.
Making a trip to the swamp, and it is swampy weather. No rain in the forecast there.
Yeah, but it's probably going to feel kind of wet with all that humidity, but they're used to it. They're fine. Okay, Paul, this is what you've been waiting for.
My Longhorns, used to humidity. It's going to be a hot, humid day here in Austin, which is putting those Rams at a disadvantage because they live in Fort Collins, Colorado, where the dew point now is like 42.
Oh, that means
it's like 72 in Austin for this 2:30 local kick. Yeah, advantage for the Longhorns.
Yeah, that humidity can make all the difference. All right, let's talk about Western Kentucky taking on Alabama. Another pretty hot game there.
Go Western Kentucky. That's all I got to say.
And your weekend.
That's right. The Weather Channel has you covered wherever you are right now, or perhaps headed for this Labor Day weekend.
Now, speaking of interesting weather and going places where it's kind of stormy, how about Louisiana earlier? Check this out. This time-lapse video shows a pretty angry storm coming in, a lot of heavy rain and gusty winds.
Yeah, you know it's getting windy and gusty when you see the boats start to bobble around like that just a little bit.
And here's the thing. While it looks interesting, it's also concerning because they're also below sea level. They've been dealing with rain and storms coming through there. Flash flood warning ongoing right now. Rainfall rates 1 to 4 inches per hour.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that could overwhelm the pumping systems that pump that water out. In fact, a live look, can't see more than what, maybe 300 yards or so.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, all that tropical moisture, this is going to be the scene for a lot of the Gulf Coast.
Yeah, not just New Orleans, but like Houston, many other areas all the way across Texas. Again, this is a rainy time of it, stormy weather like this, a lot of it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, wet weather could be maybe potentially contaminating your vacation plans.
As we kick off your Labor Day weekend. Here's the forecast for Detroit, 88 degrees. You guys are going to be in the warm sector of our low pressure system. 88 is about 10 degrees above average for where you should be for this time of year. Scattered storms heading through your afternoon and into your evening as well. And some of those storms from Detroit up through Flint for much of this portion of Michigan could be reaching severe limits, maybe some gusty winds, some large hail. And in this area in particularly, a very isolated chance for an isolated tornado. We've got a front that's going to be moving through, and it's going to help to spark up that risk for some stronger storms from St. Louis, Missouri up through Chicago, all the way over through Indianapolis as well. As this warm front lifts north, most of this area is going to be encompassed in that warm sector, which is hot and humid and prime for the cold front to move through and bring us that chance for some storms. So you can see the available energy that we've had building throughout the last few hours, really starting to see that atmosphere destabilize, which is exactly what you need when you start to see those storms popping off. It gets those storms some energy and could elevate them to severe levels. So here are our low-level winds over the past 3 hours. Maybe not as robust as it was earlier, but still some indication there that those winds higher in the atmosphere could translate to damaging winds as this front moves through. So the daytime heating interacting with that frontal boundary going to help those storms bubble up. And then, of course, with the moisture, with the heat, with the humidity, you have that typical kind of pop-up nature to some of the thunderstorms as well out ahead of that frontal boundary. We've got some stronger winds aloft, as mentioned, which is going to support that risk for damaging winds and hail. But not just that, that risk for some flash flooding when we have plenty of moisture to work with. So let's time this out for you. Detroit, your quiet for most of the day. Fort Wayne, same thing. But here's 6, 7 o'clock. We're seeing that fill in from Flint toward Detroit. Springfield, Illinois, back through St. Louis. You're getting some of those storms to bubble up. Fort Wayne, maybe some of those storms moving in after sunset for you. Indianapolis, other than maybe a pop-up storm here or there, it's fairly quiet for you until we head into the overnight hours. We watch as that line of storms kind of fills in overnight into early Saturday morning. It is going to be kind of scattered in nature at times, but really the main focus is going to be right along that frontal boundary. And that is how we're starting off our Saturday morning. And then, Paul, of course, we're going to watch the other areas that are dealing with some storminess for this Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, that's right. That's good.
Probably we are at this point. You can see some of our storm reports from the past 24 hours. You had flight delays across the Ohio Valley. You had wind reports, hail reports, and then looking farther south as well, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, all getting in on some of those storm damage reports from the past 24 hours. Not just the wind, not just the hail, but also some flooding here across portions of Pennsylvania, Virginia as well. Now, I do know some of this region needs some rain. You just don't want so much that it's causing flooding issues. So here's our front. It's going to be moving east, and that is going to bring us rounds of storms. But for today, ahead of that front, well ahead of that front, we've got that daytime heating that is going to help us get that risk for maybe some storms with damaging wind gusts, lots of lightning, heavy rain, certainly possible for cities like Greenville, Raleigh, Fayetteville, up into Roanoke. So while it's quiet this morning, with the exception of a little rain there in southern coastal Virginia, we have plenty of sunshine. It's already heating up. It's going to be another very hot, humid day, so you want to take that into account. And then watch what happens as we head through today. We start to see those storms developing there in western North Carolina, portions of western Virginia, and over central North Carolina toward the coast, the low country, getting in on some of those showers and storms before all is said and done. And then it remains stormy into your Friday night as well before we start to see things improve just a little bit. Paul, in Raleigh, it looks like Saturday might be the better day of the weekend in terms of completely missing out on some of that rain.
Yeah, and this is a holiday weekend too. Far away shot because elephants.
And you get elephants are. I don't know if you guys knew it, but elephants are big. They're not squirrel size.
You found out today. Today years old before you realized elephants were large. A large change in temperatures coming your way in the ATL. See what I did there?
Oh yeah, I did.
Segue?
Oh wait, I was like, oh, this is Atlanta. Okay, so we're going from the lower 90s this afternoon to the mid 70s by Wednesday, but we've got the storms and the showers regardless.
Yeah, and some of the forecasts for next week, what's called a kind of a wedge or kind of a easterly flow along the east side of Appalachians could really keep you cool for much of next week in northern Georgia.
Yeah, you can kind of see it here. You see that depiction of the wedge there along the eastern side of the Appalachians, but still warm, humid air in place out ahead of that front. Not just kind of warm, but for some of us, records.
Yeah, we're talking about mid to upper 90s. All could set or tie records, and some of these records go back some quick math, some 70 years plus.
I'm gonna let you do that. 70 years. You do that. I'll talk about this graphic. We're going to have a heat index today that could get kind of dangerous. Cincinnati, Nashville, lower hundreds. There we go. No, into the triple digits. It's going to
Some of y'all will have that crash down with the drier air, so say goodbye to the heat index, but that's not until next week.
That's right. Well, you can track the temps with the TWC streaming app. Concerning weather, possible as we head through the evening into the overnight hours. This afternoon as well, some of those storms could bubble up and be a little bit on the stronger side. So we're going to have storms along a cold front. That's what you see highlighted here. The biggest risk for some of those severe storms that could be impacting your road travel, your airway travel, going to be for Detroit, Flint. You're included in that as well. Maybe some damaging winds, maybe a bit of hail. Very isolated tornado chance here, but even Indianapolis, Fort Wayne, back up toward Chicago, I keep an eye on these storms. They could be a little bit on the stronger side, especially for places like Indianapolis, Louisville. You're in the warm sector of this low pressure system. You can see that here. You can also see the showers associated with that frontal boundary that's going to be moving in. In the warm sector, you're getting that heating, you're getting that destabilization of the atmosphere. And so ahead of that front, as we get a little bit of lift going, it's going to help to bubble those storms up. The daytime heating going to add to the fuel that the storms have to work with. And as that cold front pushes in to that very moist, very humid, warm air, that is going to help to get those storms going. So the front certainly is a trigger point, but really anywhere in that warm sector, when you're talking about the type of heat and humidity that we're going to have, bring us that possibility for storms. So here's 4 o'clock. You can see those storms bubbling up across the Ohio Valley, and then you see those storms related with that frontal boundary that's moving in from Springfield back through St. Louis, and then up around Flint and Detroit heading into the evening. You'll watch as those storms fill in toward Fort Wayne. St. Louis, you're going to be stuck in those storms for a little while into the early overnight hours out ahead of that frontal boundary. They lose a little bit of steam overnight, but overall they're still there. You're still going to have the rain. You're still going to have some storms moving through. A couple showers hanging around the northeast today as well. Not a crazy rain out, but we will have that chance for some showers and storms. And then tomorrow, a better chance for some severe storms for this region for portions of upstate New York, much of Pennsylvania, down into West Virginia, Virginia, over through D.C. You're included in that. So if you're making your plans and say D.C. for your Labor Day Saturday, make sure you're keeping an eye on this. Not to mention that possibility for some flash flooding. Large chunk of the country could see some flash flooding with all this rain that we have to work with tomorrow.
Days from now through the weekend.
Yeah, Chicago saw some delays this morning, ORD. So when you see those big cities getting the delays, it starts to domino. Well, we're here to get you ready for your day, your weekend, your travel.
Yeah, the Weather Channel has you covered wherever you're headed for this long 3-day Labor Day weekend, the unofficial end of summer.
Oh, bummer.
Aww.
Bummer. But you know, we've got some live video here coming out of southern Louisiana. This is New Orleans, and the storm came in. This is part of a very stormy, rainy time of it that we're going to see not just today, but for the next several days along the northern Gulf Coast.
Yeah, this is the weekend, especially in some of the, I'd say, the more northern latitudes where people are putting their boats away for, like, you know, they're getting one last weekend. And New Orleans, you could probably keep it out a little longer, but you do not want to be out in this.
Yeah, this is a time lapse of storms rolling in. They rolled in and they have not really rolled out.
Yeah.
In some areas have picked up, 1 to 3 inches of rain. We have a live picture from New Orleans right now. That's the ongoing concern. Dr. Westell, this thing might not have a name, won't be a tropical storm or depression, but it's bringing tropical storm or depression type weather across the Gulf Coast.
Very heavy rain and extremely high rainfall rates. So it may not rain all the hours of the day, but when it does rain, it's going to come down hard and bring that flooding threat along the way.
Yeah.
So, we have that wet weather, which could be maybe interfere.
At risk for some severe storms in places like Detroit today. Going to be quiet into your early mid-afternoon, and then we start to see that better chance for storms bubbling up. What will be bubbling up before we ever get to the storms is the heat and the humidity. Detroit, you should be like in the upper 70s this time of year. Instead, we're in the upper 80s, and I'd say you're probably ready for this front to move through and bring you some cooler air, right? Flint, you also have that risk for some severe storms, damaging winds and hail. Going to be our biggest risks here. Very isolated tornado threat for this area. For everywhere else shaded in the lighter red, you've got that risk for those storms maybe getting to severe limits, but slightly lower risk than up around, say, Detroit and Flint. And here's why. Here's what's going on. We've got this warm front. It's lifting north. So what we call this out ahead of the cold front and then south of the warm front is the warm sector of that low pressure system. And you guys are living up to it already at 88 in Indianapolis, 89 in Louisville. And that heat is just going to keep pumping in. The humidity there as well. And that is helping to destabilize the atmosphere. Tons of available energy across southern Illinois, much of Indiana, over through the Ohio Valley. We've got some wind support as we head up through the atmosphere as well. That could translate to damaging winds at the surface. Now, daytime heating going to keep building out ahead of that frontal boundary. As we know, the front will help trigger some storms, but when you have this type of daytime heating, plenty of moisture as well, you could get some storms bubbling up just in that warm sector pretty much anywhere through the afternoon. With those winds that we have in the higher levels of the atmosphere, that is going to support that damaging wind threat, that hail threat that we've got going on heading into this evening. And plenty of moisture is going to also support that risk for some flash flooding across a huge chunk of real estate here from the Great Lakes region all the way back into the southern plains. So let's time this out for you here really quickly. We'll see those storms beginning to bubble up in the warm sector across the Ohio Valley, but here are our frontal storms out ahead of that frontal boundary from St. Louis up through Springfield, Illinois, Fort Wayne up through Flint and Detroit. You can see those storms moving through in the evening. Nighttime hours as that sun is going down. St. Louis, Springfield, you still have some of that around. Dotting the map across portions of Ohio, northern Kentucky, some of those just kind of daytime storms before things calm down. That front continues pushing south and east as we head into your early Saturday. And then look what happens behind this, Paul. We start to see that cooler, drier air building in. You can even kind of see it on the future radar with that end in the cloud cover as well. And all this is going to try to make its way farther south and east.
Yeah, going to try.
And you're like, wait, I didn't do any laundry. I didn't do anything I was supposed to do. So if you've got a stormy day, then you get all of those adulting chores out of the way, and then you get to go have fun on the nicer weather days. So as we've already seen recently in the past 24 hours, these storms can be in business across the Ohio Valley, up through the mid-Atlantic, the Northeast. Wind, hail reports, and then across the South as well. These storms were packing a punch as they moved through, not just in terms of, say, wind and hail, but also with that flooding potential. Everywhere that you see the yellow or the oranges, that's 3 to 5 or 5 to 8 inches. So we did see some flooding reports up across portions of Pennsylvania, portions of Virginia as well. We are just stuck in this heat and humidity out ahead of that cold front. So we've got that possibility for some storms today from portions of North Georgia stretching over through the Carolinas up into southern Virginia, Roanoke, Raleigh, Charlotte, all included in that. So it's quiet starting off your morning, but as we continue to heat up, look at this. Charlotte already at 88, Raleigh 89, feels even hotter than that when you factor in the humidity. So we've got that heat, that humidity, that unstable atmosphere. Evening, we've got those storms bubbling up through western portions of Virginia, southern West Virginia, western portions of the Carolinas as well. But then you'll also notice as we look toward Raleigh, down toward the coast, we've got some of those storms hanging around too. It's not going to be, you know, everyone seeing storms, but there are going to be storms out there that you have to plan your Friday night and into your early Saturday around. But look what happens. We're kicking off Saturday and it looks a little bit better. So in Raleigh, Saturday currently looks like the better day of your weekend. But you know, Paul, anytime it's the summer in the southeast, I wouldn't completely rule out a pop-up storm across an entire region. We are keeping an eye on the northeast, though, where they're going to have some. It's the elephant in the room. Okay, in Atlanta, the heat has been the elephant in the room for far too long. Not me. He was talking about me. We've got thunderstorms, 92 today. By Wednesday, it's much cooler. Guys, we're in the 4th hour, which actually equates to 8 hours. So who knows what we might say. You got to stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Must see TV. Yeah, but I tell you what, the cold front's on the way. So millions across the Midwest, Great Lakes, Northeast, Mid-Atlantic. This could be our last, I wouldn't say hurrah, but our last in terms of the humidity and the heat here, while the Southeast, it's still August and early September, but we're not going out easily with this heat.
No, we're not. Look at these forecast temperatures, possibly breaking or at least tying records in Lexington, Louisville, Cincinnati. You guys are getting at least 2, maybe past some very old records, and you're like, all right, enough.
You know, 60, 70 plus years. That's how old these records are. So it's been rare since we've had this much heat. But it's not just the heat, you add in the humidity, which is really the problem here. It's going to feel like 100 plus degrees in Cincy, Raleigh, Nashville, Tallahassee, most likely even Atlanta tomorrow.
Yeah, if you had those dew points down, it wouldn't, you know, maybe feel so terrible. But a lot of us are going to be stuck in this very humid air. Meanwhile, the cooler, drier air is north of that front.
Yeah, enjoy that. And I don't think we'll be back into that oppressive humidity across the northern tier states as we head into next week at all. The South, different little story here. But look at this, plenty of 70s and 80s, but you're really going to feel it with low humidity in the morning.
Yeah.
Temperatures in the 50s and dare I say even 40s in some locations.
That is jacket weather. We've sailed past sweater weather when you're saying 40s and straight to jacket weather. Below average temperatures. I am very happy though for, say, Texas. When we're looking at Labor Day weekend and we're looking at those temperatures below average because, man, you guys have been sweltering it out there.
Some of that is rain and clouds keeping you cooler, but say Midwest, Northeast, that's just the cooler, drier air. That's about, say, 30% of lower 48 population below average by Labor Day.
I'd rather be below average and cool the weekend, but just be safe out there. I know you probably made a lot of plans, have a lot of things on the itinerary with the long weekend, but with that flash flooding in the forecasting, it can get dangerous very quickly. It can get dangerous when you're talking about severe storms of any kind. We have that risk for portions of Detroit up through Flint. We've got that risk for damaging wind and hail, as well as very heavy rain. Very, very isolated tornado risk, but wouldn't completely rule it out. It's not a 0 chance. Downpours certainly possible ahead of that front as we're squeezing the moisture out of the atmosphere, and we've got plenty of moisture to work with here. We're in the warm sector. Look at this. We've warmed to 88 in Springfield, Illinois. Annapolis, we're starting to see that heat in the warm sector of our low pressure system. We've got our showers associated with our frontal boundary, but you'll notice with the daytime heating as well, we're starting to see some of those storms bubbling up. Our atmosphere is destabilized. We have plenty of energy to work with already, so those storms storms are going to start to fire up. Now, we are watching the storms that are going to be along the front. That is going to bring us our best chance for some of those stronger storms. But when you've got a daytime heating set up the way we do, the moisture that we have in the atmosphere, those little bubbling up storms across Tennessee, the Ohio Valley, that's going to be a possibility to kind of bubble up there, put down some heavy rain that could impact you as you're saying you're getting off of work or whatever you might be doing this afternoon. You see that here across Ohio, Kentucky, but here are storms that we're watching along that frontal boundary or out ahead of that frontal boundary, really from Fort Wayne back through St. Louis as we're heading through the evening, Flint down through Detroit, some heavy rain, some storms. Some of those, once again, could get a bit feisty. Heading into the overnight, they're losing a little bit of their punch, but you could still have a strong storm or two. Another round of rain and storms there in Detroit as we're waking up early Saturday morning, and then you'll notice the map still dotted with those showers and storms to kick off your Saturday. For today, a few showers here or there around the northeast, but tomorrow is where we have a better chance for this region for that risk of severe storms. That is as that front moves through and then eventually bringing you much nicer, drier air.